High-speed gear, first impressions of the Sig P320 X5 and the Sig MCX Virtus patrol rifle, coming up. Mail Call Mondays is sponsored by Modular Driven Technologies. If you need a chassis system for your precision rifle, check out mdttac.com. I'm John McQuay with 8541 Tactical, and this is Mail Call Mondays, the show that answers your questions about precision rifles, optics, and equipment. Welcome to another Mail Call Mondays, and this Monday we are going to talk about what we did last week, and that was take a tour of the high-speed gear facility down in North Carolina. Now, High-Speed Gear was nice enough to invite us down to tour their factory with several other gun riders, check out their manufacturing, talk to them about their different products, and get outfitted with one of their battle belts to be able to use for our shooting here. We also had a chance to work with Sig Academy and check out the new P320 X5 and the Sig MCX Virtus patrol rifle, which is the current generation of the Sig MCX. And I can say overall it was a really enjoyable time. We got to check out a lot of cool stuff. We got to burn ammo on somebody else's dime, which is always fun, and it really changed my impression of some of the products that we got to deal with. Now, first of all, let's talk about High-Speed Gear. Now, High-Speed Gear is a U.S. company, and all their products are made in North Carolina. They are most notably known for their tacos, and I'm going to take a quick minute to go over what a taco is. Because throughout the week we were posting some stuff on our social media page, and we were tagging it Taco Tuesday on Tuesday, and a lot of guys didn't understand what a taco is. And a taco is High-Speed Gear's magazine pouch, and we've got two different variations here. There are several different other variations, but these will get the point across. First of all, right here we have the dual pistol taco. So this takes up two MOLLE rows, and it accommodates handgun magazines. So first of all, I've got just a regular Glock 17 magazine here, and it fits in here very well. It's in there nice and snug, but it comes out very easily because it is just riding against nylon. It does have a plastic stiffener on the outside that does help retain the magazine and protect the bungees. So it's basically a bungee retention system, and you can adjust the tension by sliding this cord lock up and down the bungee to wherever you want. So this is a double stack 9mm magazine. It will also accept double stack 45 magazines with no problem at all, and it will even go all the way down to a single stack 1911 magazine, and it slides in there and it's retained just fine. I have used one of their triple pistol tacos for 1911 magazines when I was shooting Steel Challenge, and they worked just fine. They retain the magazines very well, and they're really quick to draw from and really smooth. Now, the second version of taco that I have back here is a double taco, and it is rifle in the back and pistol in the front. And you have the same versatility with the pistol side of it, but with the rifle side of it, it will fit a regular AR-15, 30-round PMag, slides in there just fine, slides out just fine, and without any adjustment whatsoever, I can go to AK, and there we go. It takes a little bit of sliding because this one is empty, and so the feed lips want to catch on there. If it was full, it's a whole lot easier to get them in there. But you see, no adjustment whatsoever, and it comes out and goes back in very easily. You do have to mind the lug on the back of the AK magazine, but the polymer stiffener in there works just fine. So no matter if you run AR or AK, you can switch over very quickly. But the coolness doesn't stop there. We've got a 7.62 PMag here, and again, right in with no adjustment, or even a MDT polymer 308 magazine in there, and comes out just fine. So you can see with the tacos, you have a great bit of versatility to be able to run just about any magazine type that you really want to run. Now back here on the back, I've got a Streamlight Protac flashlight, and it is sitting in one of their polymer tacos, which is one of their new products. So this does away with the nylon outer face and instead replaces it with a polymer piece. But again, you still get the versatility of going from double stack down to single stack, and it still holds it very well. This one I just happen to be using to run the flashlight because it happens to fit in there very well and it retains it really well, so it's just a handy piece to drop in there. So again, really nice products overall. Lastly, we'll talk about this guy here. This is an iTaco, really hilarious name there. But this is designed to hold your cell phone. So I can take my iPhone 7 Plus here and it will slide right down in here. Holds it no problem. I actually have laser cut panels on the front, so I could put another pouch on the front here if I wanted to. And it's got pockets for business cards, whatever. But really nice overall. And you notice this one is black. One of the reasons that this one is black instead of gray like the rest of my pouches here is this one is actually one that they had us tie ourselves just to get an idea of what goes into tying one of these pouches, because they do have ladies working back in the factory that tie the pouches. And one of the cool things about High Speed Gear, since tacos are one of their primary products, all of their employees are cross-trained on how to tie the shock cord to put the tacos together. So it was really neat, really easy to get these laced up once you learn the technique. And so that's really nice to know too, because eventually the shock cord will wear out and you can go ahead and replace the shock cord, or you can contact High Speed Gear and they can send you out the lacing if you wish. So we've got that there, and then we'll switch to the back real quick, and this is a really cool product. This is High Speed Gear's Magnet. And it is basically a dump pouch. This is rolled up into its most compact package. It does take up 2 slots on your belt. And you notice I've got my gloves in here. When you unroll it, it is a really pretty decent sized mag pouch here. They did a real good thing with the Velcro here, so you can just fold that Velcro flap over and it's not going to catch on anything. And then you've got plenty of room to dump magazines in there. Keep spare rounds in there, whatever. So those of you guys that work in a situation where either you need to be able to collect evidence rapidly, or you're in a situation where you don't want to leave expended magazines or partial magazines on the deck, then a dump pouch is a really nice thing to have. It was great to use on some of our range training because I could just throw extra mags into that pouch and then sort out what I wanted in my primary mag pouch as we went through the shooting. Now you saw the compact form there. That's usually best if you have a lot of stuff on your belt and you don't have a whole lot of real estate. But here you see I've got something flat on this side and nothing on this side. And so it's very easy just to roll this guy back up here, slap my gloves in the middle there, pull that up and fasten it down. And this is the way I like to run it when I'm actually wearing the belt, because I can deploy it and then stow it very easily without actually having to try to do all the origami stuff to fold it back up. It's easier to fold it back up when it's on the bench. It's easier to roll it like this and fold it while it's on your body. And I found it really doesn't get in the way. Even if I had another mag shingle underneath here, another taco underneath here, it's really not getting in the way for me. We'll roll over here to the back. I do have a rat tourniquet in here. The rat's tourniquets are, they're a love it or hate it kind of thing. There are a lot of guys that are opponents of them. There are a lot of guys that love them. They were in our goodie bag for this deal, so I went ahead and laced it in here because, honestly, a rat's tourniquet is better than no tourniquet. I may at some point come back here and replace this with a cat tourniquet just because that is what I'm most used to using. I use them here in my law enforcement job. I have applied them quite successfully fairly often, so it may be something that I replace here. But if you run a rat's tourniquet, one of the nice things about the High speed gear sure grip belts is you can thread the rat's tourniquet back behind one of the panels, and then I've got it set up here just kind of a ripcord effect. So if I need it, I can just reach back with my support side, or if my support side's injured, I can reach around to either side with my support side. I'm sorry, if my strong side is injured, it's on my strong side, I can reach across with my support side and just basically ripcord it. I grab this and pull down and it will unthread itself and come out, and it is preloaded, ready to go, so I can just open it up, slip it on, and do whatever I need to do if I'm applying it to myself, or, you know, it's ready to go if I need to apply it to somebody else. So that was a nice thing that they gave out. Luckily, nobody actually needed it. Now we come around here to the strong side on my belt. This is a Blackhawk Omnivore, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. But while we were out at High Speed Gear, we were using their new polymer holster. This is Kydex Holster. It's a really high quality. Obviously, this one is formed for the Sig P320. It fit the P320 X5 just fine. We had just a little bit of muzzle sticking out of the bottom. One of the drawbacks to these right now is they do not make them for light-bearing handguns. So if you have a light on your gun, then they don't make them yet. They are looking at that. They wanted to get the standard versions out and see how well they sold before they invested in making the light-bearing versions. It is a very solid product. The handgun snapped in here, locked in very well. Once we went through a little bit of break-in period, then we were able to draw the handguns very easily. There is no tension adjustment on here, so no way you can adjust the tension. When you get one of these, you need to work with a little bit to break it in, and once you've broken it in, then the handgun will go in and out just fine. We didn't have any problems doing speed draws, manipulations, whatever, once we got a little bit of use on them. They are set up for a variety of different belt sizes, and they are closed loops. So if you have a piece of hardware come off, then it's not going to fall off of your belt. It does make getting it on and off a war belt like this a little bit more difficult, because you do have to thread the inner belt all the way out and then run the inner belt all the way through again to close it up. So just one of those things. It's a little bit more trouble to put it on, but it's very difficult to get it off. And, when it's holding a handgun, that's kind of an important thing, is that it doesn't just fall off. So a really nice product. I'm really looking forward to when they actually release them to accommodate light-bearing handguns, because pretty much all of my tactical handguns do have weapon lights on them at this point. Even the one that I carry concealed every day has a weapon light on it. So we've reached that point where weapon lights have gotten compact and bright enough that there really isn't any reason not to carry a weapon light on your handgun. Even my little Glock 26 has a TLR6 weapon light on it. So that's my opinion on that. Solid holsters, just waiting for the next generation when they bring in the light bearing issue. Now let's talk about this. This is not a High Speed Gear product, so this deviates a little bit from our trip. This is my own Blackhawk Omnivore holster. This is the second one of these that I have purchased, and it is a very cool holster, and it ties into this whole belt and the whole philosophy behind this belt, because this is the Blackhawk Omnivore that accepts the X300, and so the Surefire X300 will latch in here, and it actually is a retention holster. It's a thumb drive type mechanism here, and it will lock on that Surefire weapon light. So the Surefire weapon light, anything that weapon light will mount on will now work in this holster, because they just basically opened up the rest of the holster to cover the handgun, but not to form around the handgun or to lock on the handgun. So I can go from a Glock 19 to a Glock 17, Glock 34, Sig P320. I can go to a 1911. I've actually run this holster with my Sig 1911 TAC Ops. So there's a huge variety of firearms. In fact, the only thing that I've found that doesn't fit perfectly in here is our Glock 17 with the strike comp on it. The strike comp is about 1 millimeter too long for this holster, so I would need to cut a little bit of material out of the bottom here for it to fully lock in with the slide and battery. Now, it will lock in, but it pushes the slide out of battery just about 1 millimeter until I release it, and then the slide goes back into battery, but not a good thing. So overall, if I get a gun in for T&E, as long as I can put my X300 on, it will go in here. Now, they also make a version for the Streamlight TLR1, so if you have a TLR1, you can also get this holster and it will work for that. It comes with a paddle and comes with a belt attachment, and we've got the belt attachment set up in here. I have used it with the paddle for a little while, and it works very well, and the retention mechanism works great. Now, I'm not going to say it's as secure as something like a Safariland ALS. Those are very, very secure because they're actually indexing on the slide or the ejection port of the handgun, and pull as you might, if for some reason you do defeat it and break it, you're more than likely have damaged the gun when it comes out as well. So this, I believe if you apply enough pressure on it, you may actually be able to break the lug on the Surefire Light and have the Surefire Light detach and have the handgun come out, but I have not tested that yet. But under standard circumstances, this is much, much better than a standard Kydex holster or a standard just friction retention holster. The fact that this button will release it works very well overall, and I've been really happy with this setup. Now let's talk about the actual belt itself here. This is one of their slim grip belts. They also have a sure grip belt, which is a little bit larger. It has a couple of extra rows of the PALS slots on here. It does have a neoprene inside, and the neoprene inside works as a non-slip grip, so it really grabs onto your clothing, it grabs onto your pants belt or whatever else is underneath, and it reduces the need for any kind of keepers. I haven't found the need to try to use any belt keepers or anything on this. Now, in a law enforcement role, when I'm using my duty belt, I do have to use belt keepers to hold that in place over my pants belt because there's nothing inside my duty belt to keep it in place. If I didn't use belt keepers, then it would ride up, but whenever I drew my handgun, it would slide around and it would want to try to rotate at times. So you have to use belt keepers to keep it in its spot. The Sure Grip system prevents any need of belt keepers. They also have a thinner version of this called the Duty Grip belt that allows you to run a regular law enforcement style duty belt through, and it will additionally protect your body from the belt, but it'll keep the belt in place. And we plan on doing a extended review of the Sure Grip Duty belt, or the Duty Grip belt is what they call it, in the future. But I can tell you, using this guy, if you size it right and you get it locked in there and get it where you want, riding on your hips there, it will stick in and it will stay fairly well. The only time I've ever had a problem with it shifting around is when I'm wearing multiple layers, and those inner layers can slide against each other. So it will grip to the outer layer, and then the inner layers will slide and allow it to move around, which really isn't a fault of the belt itself. It's just the fact of wearing layers underneath a duty belt. So they do use Cobra buckles. That is an option. You also can get regular plastic side release buckles or cop lock buckles instead of the Cobra buckles, but overall it's a really nice setup. Now you will notice here that this is more of a rigger's belt type setup. There is a D-ring here. I would not advise getting this setup. I would advise going with the regular belt without the D-ring because the D-ring really prevents me from utilizing this section of attachment points here. The duty belt was a stopgap because basically I got the sizing wrong on my belt and they had to go back in and find another one, and the actual duty belt, or the rigger's belt, was the only one that they had in stock ready to roll. So I went ahead and rolled with it, so I didn't have to put a black belt in here. And I've gotten it to work just fine. For some reason I need to drag or haul something, at least I have a place to put a carabiner now. If I wanted to do a stalk with this belt, then I can attach my drag bag to the carabiner and it will work. I don't know that I would want to try to rappel with this, although the belt has the strength to be able to do it. I have issues with hanging and having only one attachment point to me falling. So I would prefer to have a actual duty belt or a harness that is designed for that. But it works very well overall, very high quality. Again, these are all made in the US. Now, one of the kind of cool things about this belt, and I'll show you here on the D-ring side of it, is that they use this laser cut material, and it cuts down on weight, cuts down on complexity, and I think it increases the speed that they can manufacture these in. And they do it in these 2-row sections here, so if you do have a holster that you need to actually run a belt through, then you can just skip these panels and run the inner belt outside of them, so you can attach your holster or whatever other pouches you have that utilize an actual belt. I have the 3-pistol taco that has a regular belt mount on the back of it. If I wanted to utilize that, I could just run the belt outside of the panels here and attach it directly to it, and it works just fine. Additionally, the back of the inner belt has loop Velcro on it, and the inside of the sure grip belt has hook Velcro on it. So when I run the belt in, it will stick to that Velcro and it will not shift around inside the inner belt. Now, that does cause some difficulty when you're actually assembling the belt, and High Speed Gear has a solution for that. While we were assembling them there at the factory, they have these strips of aluminum that you just slide into the belt, and it covers that Velcro, and then you can feed the inner belt through without it catching, and then when you pull the aluminum out, they stick together. You can do the same thing at home by utilizing a yardstick, or just go to Lowe's and get a section of 2-inch aluminum or 1.5-inch aluminum, and you can feed that through, and it'll work very, very well. It makes it a whole lot quicker getting things through. Attaching the pouches on the outside of the belt is very quick, and when I talk to the guys there at High Speed, they do recommend just going through the laser cut material, not actually looping around the inner belt unless you have a pretty heavy load. And what that does is it makes it a whole lot easier to adjust your inner belt and move things around later on. This belt, I do have it fairly tight right now for just thin outer layers. If I wanted to go with a really bulky outer layer, I would need to pull the adjustment piece back out, slack out the belt a little bit. So unfortunately, there's not a really quick way to change the adjustment here. I do have to thread that tail back through here, and it's a little bit laborious because I am on the low end of this belt. I'm almost between sizes. I was just a little bit too large for the smaller size, and I'm just a little bit too small for the larger size. So I'm right in the middle, but obviously this works just fine. I do have some overlap with the belt right here, and again, that's just fine. It's not causing any problems at all because these are totally usable out here if I was running a regular belt and not the rigger's belt type setup. So overall, the High Speed Gear worked great. First day we did a factory tour, we went through and we saw them making things, going all the way from raw materials, running them through the laser cutting machine. We saw the ladies out there sewing things together. We saw them lacing the tacos up all the way to finishing, and they took us through even their fulfillment area, which is really neat because they really work hard just to even pack boxes full and minimize spare space in boxes to reduce shipping costs. So all through the process, they're about minimizing waste, streamlining production, because that means more profit for them, but it also means lower prices for you. Now, this is not cheap gear. This is top-end gear. So when you go look at their prices, a belt setup like this is not going to be a cheap proposition, but they do have lifetime warranties on their stuff. The stuff will last. I have High Speed Gear pouches around here that I've been kicking around for quite some time. and they just work. And the ability to have one set of gear that will work with a wide variety of weapon systems, a wide variety of magazines, really allows you to maximize that value of that investment. So there is cheaper gear out there, but again, you're paying for the utility, you're paying for the versatility, and you're paying for the fact that it's made in the US. Now, High Speed Gear has not paid us anything for this video. As I said, they invited us down to check out the facility. They did set us up with some pretty cool gear that you'll see us using going forward, but this is not a paid endorsement of any kind. Now let's move on to the second day. The second day we went out to the range, out to Spartan Tactical Training Facility, and Sig Academy was on hand to run us through some drills with the new P320 X5 and the Sig MCX Virtus patrol rifle. And those are two really interesting weapon systems. I was really excited with the Sig P320 X5 because before even going down there, I had been eyeballing that as my next handgun purchase. I was really curious because of the military adoption of the Sig P320, but the X5 is their competition version, and I really wanted to see how that would work through the different handgun competitions that I shoot. So I was really excited about it. It has some novel features, of course the modularity of it, the fact that when you buy a P320, the inner fire control group is basically the serialized part. The grip modules, the slide, the barrel, all that stuff can be purchased aftermarket, so you can take a Sig P320 X5 and you can convert it to a subcompact P320 if you wish. Additionally, you can buy different bottom ends, so if you're one of these guys that really likes to grind and burn your polymer, then you can stipple the grips, grind away on them, do whatever you want to do, and not worry about either harming the resale value of it or damaging the pistol beyond repair, because if you really jacked up one of the grip modules, you can just get rid of it, buy a replacement, put it on, and roll. So I like the idea of it. I like the fact that when the aftermarket gets rolling on it, there are some great possibilities for that handgun. So when we got the P320 out to the range, the first thing I noticed is it had a relatively long trigger pull and long reset. Now these did have the flat face trigger, which I did enjoy, but that trigger reset took a little bit of getting used to. Then when we did our first firing string, I noticed that not only does the size make it feel like a really large pistol, I mean it felt larger than my double stack 45 Glock 21 SF that I carry, but then shooting it, the slide reciprocating really made it feel like a bigger pistol bouncing back and forth. Now the X5 slide does have cutout windows on the top to minimize the mass, to try to get that slide reciprocating a little bit faster, and it is already cut out so that you could put an optic on it if you wish. There are two screws that remove the rear sight setup, and then the Sig Romeo optic will drop right in there. The handguns that we were shooting did not have optics on them. They were all just adjustable iron sights. But I did notice just it felt like a big pistol rattling back and forth. The height over bore, or I'm sorry, the bore height over your hand is a little bit higher than some of the competition out there. And that just made it feel, again, overall like a bigger pistol. It was very difficult for me to get the timing right so I could get rapid strings. Like, for instance, shooting bill drills. I felt I was a lot slower on that handgun than I am on a Glock 19 or a Glock 17. Now, to be fair to the handgun, this was my first time shooting it, and this is just a half a day at the range, so I really can't say that it's a bad pistol or it's a good pistol. It was my first impression with it. I hope sometime in the future that I get a chance to actually get one in and then get out and do a little bit more of a evaluation shoot than just a familiarity shoot, which is what I consider this to be. But I will say that going into it, I was really excited about purchasing a P320 X5, and then coming out of it on the back end, I'm not as driven to try to purchase one of these. I honestly think I have other pistols that do the job better right now, so it's not something that I have a burning desire to go after anymore. So that was my first impression with the P320 X5. Now we switch over to the Sig MCX Virtus. Now this is kind of a It's the current generation of the MCX, and they kind of went through and beefed up some parts. It has a little bit heavier barrel. It has a heavier duty handguard. They changed some of the internal parts. They unitized some things, so the operating assembly now is not designed to be end user disassembled. So the springs are all set up in there, and the springs have a very, very long life to them. So most shooters should never have to replace the operating springs throughout the time that they own the firearm. If they need to be replaced, they can be replaced as a unit. They also went through and did some things like put in a firing pin block, so that those of you that are used to using ARs know that when you insert a magazine and you drop the bolt on a live cartridge, when that bolt locks closed, the firing pin is a floating firing pin in there, and it is free to move, so the firing pin does actually strike the primer when you drop the bolt on a live round on a standard AR. When you eject that round, you can see that because you will have a very tiny dimple in the middle of the primer. Not deep enough to actually set it off in most cases, but that does have a strike, and there have been some concerns, especially in the law enforcement community, where you are routinely cycling the first round of the magazine over and over again about this firing pin strike. Well, Sig decided to solve the problem by putting a firing pin block in, so now when you drop the bolt, the firing pin should not contact the primer at all. When the hammer swings up to strike the firing pin, the first thing it does is it bumps this block out of the way, and then it impacts the firing pin and sends the firing pin forward. So as long as the hammer is in the forward position, it's holding the firing pin block out of the way. It's really kind of a neat setup when you look at it in the bolt. But we didn't have any problems whatsoever. We didn't go out and drop test the rifles at all, but we didn't have any malfunctions while we were shooting them. These MCXs were equipped with more of a carbine style buttstock, so it has sort of a buffer tube and then a collapsible stock on the buffer tube, but it is a side folding stock as well, so you can still slip the stock, slide it to the side or fold it to the side, and have a much more compact package for easy storage. Extending the buttstock was just as easy as pulling the buttstock and snapping it back out. It locked out and it's ready to go. I ended up using the rifle with the stock almost totally collapsed for most of the time. That was where I felt most comfortable with it, but longer shooters or taller shooters should not have any problems with it, with the range of adjustment on the stock. I will say that shooting the carbine stock makes it feel more like a standard AR than some of the other stocks out there, the wire stock or the two-wire PDW style stock. Those make it a little bit more difficult to comfortably shoot a carbine fast. So I do like the stock that they currently have on the Gen 2 of the MCX. Now let's talk about the trigger real quick. These guns were fresh out of the box with no lube on them. We just pulled them out, slapped a Romeo 4T optic on top of it, and took them out shooting. I got to 0 one of the first ones, so it means I fired the first 9 rounds out of this rifle since it came out of the box, and I can tell you that right out of the box the trigger has a little bit of gritty creep to it before it breaks, but it's about average for a mid-level AR, again, right out of the box. Now, once we broke them in and once we got several hundred rounds through them, that trigger smoothed out considerably, and it was something that I didn't notice anymore, especially doing the fast close-up drills that we were doing. Now, the instructor there did have a slightly modified MCX Virtus. His had a Geissele trigger in it. He had a BCM comp on the front of it, and he had a BCM vertical grip. So this was a little bit closer to the ARs that I normally shoot in feel. And while the overall package is a little bit heavier than my dot sight equipped ARs, it had a very, very flat recoil profile, very quick follow-up shots, and I was very easily able to bust out bill drills and quick strings with it, no problem at all. And that rifle, with that Geissele trigger and the BCM comp on it, made me really, really want an MCX Virtus. I think that may be my next carbine purchase. So overall, they worked very well. They do have ambidextrous charging handles. They have ambidextrous controls on them. We went through some transition drills, some reload drills, and everything worked exactly the way I expected it to work. Additionally, the MCX Virtus is a very modular platform. The handguard comes off very easily just by punching the front takedown pin out, and then the barrel actually removes with 2 screws through the side. So you can strip the barrel and replace the barrel in the field with simple hand tools. Now, going forward, Sig announced that the barrel will come with a Headspace Bolt. So if you purchase a Gen 2 MCX barrel, it will come with a bolt, so it's ready to go. You don't have to worry about any headspace issues at all. So if you get the 5.56 Virtus and you decide you want a 300 black, you can buy a 300 black barrel and bolt and be ready to go. Just drop it in, tighten 2 screws down, and roll with it. The back of the receiver still has that Picatinny type rail, so you can replace the stock with whatever buttstock you decide you want to swap onto it. Again, overall, really nice setup. 2-position gas adjustment, so you do have the ability, if you swap a suppressor on it, to dial the gas adjustment down. We didn't have to mess with the gas adjustment at all. They ran just fine, and I didn't see any malfunctions from the 5 guns that we had on the line through all the ammo that we burned through them. So really nice setup overall, and that about does it for my first impressions of the P320 and the Sig MCX. I'm definitely looking forward to getting some more trigger time on the MCX. Now let's switch over to some precision rifle stuff really quickly. You guys know that we are doing a rifle build on the Ultimatum Deadline action. It's a really cool action that we have gone over in some of the previous Mail Call Mondays, and also that we checked out during our SHOT Show after action report. We have just now gotten in the barrel for this build, and this barrel is from Excalibur. A lot of you guys asked me to check them out. We went with a 24-inch 6.5 Creedmoor barrel, and this is in a Savage profile. You'll excuse me because I can't remember the Savage profile right offhand. It's a little bit heavier than a Remington Sendero contour, but it's still not a full bull profile. It's about where I like for a competition rifle because they're still a little bit easier to move around than if you go with a full bull. We do have the muzzle threaded. As I said, it's chambered in 6.5 Creedmoor, and this is a Savage small shank, so this should thread right into our Ultimatum Deadline action, and we'll use the barrel nut that we got from Ultimatum to lock it in. So right now, all we are waiting for is the chassis system from MDT. Once we get that in, and the trigger from Trigger Tech, we will be ready to do our Ultimatum build, and hopefully YouTube won't kick that video off. So far, this is April 2nd, and we haven't seen any issues so far, and I'm crossing my fingers, but just in case, make sure you guys are subscribed to us on Full30. Some of you guys have said you've had some problems finding us on Full30. For some reason, we're not showing up in the channel listing, so make sure you click the link down below, and that will take you straight to this video on Full30, or maybe I'll make it go straight to our profile page, and you guys can subscribe to us there. We will be cross-posting content now to YouTube and to Full30 for 2 reasons. First of all, to help Full30 grow, and second of all, that way we have less content that we have to archive and cross-post if for some reason YouTube decides to shut our channel down. Again, we hope that doesn't happen, but make sure you're following us on Facebook, Instagram, and over on Full30 so that if that does happen, we can get information out to you. That does it for this Mail Call Mondays because my voice is about to go. I've been a little bit congested. Hopefully I'm not fighting anything, but at least it held out for the video. If you have any questions on anything we've covered, please put it down in the comment section below or send it to us on Facebook or Twitter. If you're listening to us on your favorite podcast app and you have questions, please send them to us at 8541tactical@gmail.com. If you like the video, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, get out and shoot.